My wife embarrassed me after I tried to correct my stepdaughter. She said I had no right to interfere because she wasn't my real daughter. I simply smiled and replied, "All right." Before I continue, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss new stories, and leave a like on the video. I'm sharing this story because life sometimes takes turns you'd never see coming. I'm 46, built my plumbing business from scratch, own my home, and thought I had everything figured out. Then I met her. It was last spring at my neighbor's barbecue. I was standing by the grill, beer in hand, making small talk about the weather when she walked in, around 27 or 28, with eyes that looked tired, yet still carried warmth. She was holding her little girl's hand, who immediately clung to her mother's leg when she saw all the strangers. "This is my daughter," she said as my neighbor introduced us. The kid couldn't have been more than 6. Big brown eyes, tangled hair, and shyly peeking from behind her mom's jeans. Later, my neighbor told me she worked part-time at the local diner, a single mom doing her best to make ends meet. The father had disappeared years ago, occasionally sending a bit of money when guilt hit him. I watched them throughout that afternoon. The little girl stayed close to her mother, whispering questions that made her mom kneel to answer each one patiently. When someone offered her a hamburger, she first looked up at her mother, silently asking for permission, as if she wasn't sure she was allowed to exist freely in that space. Something about that tugged at my heart. I'd never been married and didn't have kids. I'd spent my 20s and 30s buried in work, thinking success would fill the emptiness I sometimes felt. But watching that woman count every dollar in her head while still trying to make her daughter laugh, it stirred something deep inside me. When they were leaving, the little girl dropped her juice box. I picked it up, handed it to her, and for a moment, her big eyes met mine. "Thank you," she whispered so softly I almost didn't hear it. "You're welcome, sweetheart," I said, and her mother gave me a look, grateful, maybe surprised, that someone had noticed her daughter as more than just another child in the crowd. Over the next week, I found myself asking my neighbor about them, not obviously, but casually. I learned they lived in a small apartment across town. She took extra shifts whenever she could, just to keep food on the table. Her daughter was bright, already reading chapter books and asking questions that stumped adults, but she was shy from constantly moving and living in uncertainty. I thought about them more than I should have, about that little girl who asked permission to eat and thanked people like words were expensive, and about her mother who carried the weight of the world, yet answered every question with gentle patience. 3 weeks later, I saw them again at the grocery store. The little girl was helping count items in the cart, making sure they stayed under budget. When they spotted me, she hid again, but not as much this time. "How are you two doing?" I asked. "We're good," her mother said, though I could see the tiredness in her shoulders, the silent calculations about whether she could afford the name brand cereal. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. 8 months of slow, careful courtship followed. Coffee dates while her daughter was at school. Family dinners where I learned to talk to a 7-year-old who was slowly warming up to me. I was patient. I knew this wasn't just about a woman. It was about a child who'd already been let down, and I couldn't risk breaking her trust. Then one day, everything shifted. I was under Mrs. Patterson's sink, fixing a stubborn pipe, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but answered anyway. "Is this him?" a rushed voice asked. It was a school nurse. "We have your daughter in the nurse's office." "My daughter?" I sat up so fast, I hit my head on the cabinet. "I think you have the wrong number." "You're listed as her emergency contact," she said. "She fell during recess, and we can't reach her mother." It hit me then. Her mom had added my name to the school records, trusting me with the most important thing in her life. I dropped everything and drove straight to the school, my heart pounding. What if she was hurt? What if her mother was angry I showed up? When I arrived, she was sitting on the examination table, eyes wet with tears, knees scraped, palms covered in dirt. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, the tone she always responded to. "I heard you took a little fall." She nodded, trying not to cry again. The nurse said it wasn't serious, just needed cleaning and a bandage. I knelt beside her and offered my hand. She took it right away, something she'd never done before, without hesitation. "This might sting a little," I warned gently. She gripped my hand tight, but stayed silent, brave as ever. While I helped the nurse clean and bandage her knee, she looked at me with those wide brown eyes and said something that froze me completely. "Thank you, Daddy." That word hit me harder than anything before. Daddy. Not my name, not Mom's friend, but Daddy. Like it was the most natural word in the world. The nurse politely looked away as I fought back tears. This little girl, abandoned by the man meant to protect her, had just given me the most meaningful title of my life. "You're welcome, sweetheart," I whispered. "Daddy's here." When her mother arrived, frantic and apologizing, she found us in the hallway. Her daughter held my hand, talking about how I made the pain stop and bought her juice from the vending machine. "She called you Daddy," her mother said quietly. "Yeah," I replied, "she did." "How does that make you feel?" she asked. I looked down at the little girl who trusted me enough to claim me as hers. "Like the luckiest man alive," I said. That night, after settling her with ice cream and cartoons, her mother and I talked for hours about what it all meant. "She's never called anyone that before," she told me. "Her real father left when she was 2. She doesn't even remember him." "I'm not going anywhere," I said honestly. "If you'll both have me, I want to be her dad for real." The next morning, the little girl climbed into my lap at breakfast and asked if I could teach her to fix things like I do. That's when I realized it wasn't just about dating her mother anymore. It was about becoming a family. We got married the week after her 8th birthday. She insisted on having 2 roles at the wedding, ring bearer and flower girl, because, as she said, "This is about all of us becoming a family, and I need to help make it official." The ceremony was small, just close friends and her aunt from Denver. But when our daughter walked down the aisle, holding both rings and scattering rose petals in her white dress, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "Do you take this woman and her daughter to be your family?" the judge asked, improvising, since the little one had whispered something to him beforehand. "I do," I said, looking at both of them. "And do you," he turned to her, "take this man to be your daddy for real this time?" "I do," she said proudly, loud enough to make everyone laugh, even the judge. The next few years were everything I never knew I wanted. Saturday mornings became our special time, just the 2 of us, working on projects around the house. I taught her how to hold a hammer, measure twice and cut once, and read wood grain. She taught me that 7 a.m. cartoons could be the best part of the week. We built a tree house that took 3 months because she insisted on helping with every single nail. We painted her room together in colors her mother didn't love, but that made perfect sense to an 8-year-old. We fixed things that didn't even need fixing because she wanted to learn. "Dad, why do pipes make that sound?" she'd ask. "Well, sweetheart, let me show you," I'd reply. She absorbed everything, not just skills, but what it meant to belong somewhere. She started introducing me as her dad, proudly, to teachers, doctors, and strangers. Her mother often found us in the garage, covered in sawdust, arguing over whether to paint the birdhouse blue or green. "You two are impossible," she'd laugh, smiling all the same. We built traditions without planning to. Thursday pancakes, Saturday morning hardware store trips, where she picked out one new tool for her own little toolbox, and Sunday night movies where she'd fall asleep between us. I'd carry her to bed while her mom cleaned up the popcorn. She stopped calling me stepdad or mom's husband. I was just dad. At school events, at the doctor's office, everywhere. We were a family in every sense that mattered. When I worked late, she'd save dessert for me. When I caught the flu one winter, she made me get well soon cards every day. When her class held a bring your dad to work day, she proudly told everyone her dad was the best plumber in the whole state. At night, her mother and I would lie in bed, listening to her sing herself to sleep, and feel like we'd somehow found the life we were meant to live. "She adores you," my wife would say. "You know she doesn't even remember her biological father anymore. You're the only dad she's ever known." I always took that as the greatest privilege and promise. She had chosen me, trusted me, and I vowed every day that I would never, ever let her down. As my business grew and I began taking on larger projects, I contributed more financially. By the time she turned 10, we had saved enough to afford a good state school education. For our daughter's future, I'd tell her mother proudly while showing her the account statements. "Our girl," she'd repeat with a smile, kissing me like I'd handed her the world. Looking back, those were truly the golden years, simple, pure, and perfect in their own way. I had everything I didn't even know I wanted: a loving wife, a daughter who adored me, and a home filled with laughter, weekend projects, and Thursday night pancakes. I should have known those days wouldn't last forever. By the time she was 9, business was thriving. I'd earned a solid reputation for honest work and fair prices, and referrals were pouring in faster than I could handle. That's when I decided to expand. Hired 2 guys to take on bigger jobs. Determined to build something lasting. Greater opportunities to secure our daughter's future. I began increasing the monthly deposits into her college fund. What started as $50 became $200, then $400 as contracts grew and my client list expanded. Each month, I'd proudly show her mother the statements, watching the balance climb. $5,000, $8,000, $12,000. By her 10th birthday, we had enough saved to cover 4 years at any state university, with extra for living expenses. "You're amazing," her mother would say, shaking her head. "She's so lucky to have you." But it wasn't just about the college fund. I handled everything: school clothes, supplies, electronics, you name it. When she needed glasses in 4th grade, I arranged the appointment, sat through the exam, and let her pick out the sparkly frame she loved. Even the ER visit when she broke her wrist skateboarding. I didn't think twice. She was my daughter. That's what fathers do. When she wanted piano lessons, I bought her a keyboard and paid 6 months up front. When she got into art, I turned half the garage into a small studio where she could paint freely. When her friends started getting phones in 5th grade, I bought her the latest model. Not because she needed it, but because I wanted her to feel included. Some friends teased me, saying I was spoiling her. "What happens when she expects everything handed to her?" they'd joke. But I never saw it as spoiling. This was my little girl, the same one who used to whisper thanks for juice boxes and call me daddy when she was scared. Every payment, every gift, every ounce of effort felt like an investment in her future. She was brilliant. Straight A's, glowing teacher reviews, curious, hard-working. She devoured books like candy and could explain complex stories better than most adults. I knew, she's going to do incredible things, I'd tell her mother. Harvard, MIT, wherever she wants, she'll have the means to choose. By age 11, her college fund neared $30,000. I projected that by the time she finished high school, she'd have enough to attend any university debt-free. That, to me, was the ultimate gift: freedom. Her mother occasionally worried I was overdoing it. "You don't have to pay for everything," she'd say. But I'd smile and reply, "You raised an amazing daughter. Let me handle the rest." It felt right. She had given me something greater than I ever expected: belonging, fatherhood, purpose. The least I could do was make sure her child had every chance possible. Watching that account grow made me proud. It wasn't about money. It was about security, opportunity, and showing her that she mattered, that someone believed in her future enough to work for it. I had no idea those same statements would later become weapons, that the love I was building will one day be twisted into something cold and transactional, but that came later. For now, she was still my little girl, and I was still the dad who would do anything for her. High school changed everything, and I mean everything. The shift was so sudden it left me reeling. One day she was asking for help with her science project, eager to show me her A-plus paper. The next, she was 14 and looking at me like I was an inconvenience. Dad vanished from her vocabulary almost overnight. I became just my first name, spoken with the tone of someone tolerating a stranger. When her friends came over, I was invisible. If I tried to talk, she'd look embarrassed, like my existence was a problem. It started small: designer jeans instead of the regular ones, expensive sneakers because everyone at school has them. When I suggested cheaper options, she'd roll her eyes. Everyone apparently had luxury everything: bags, clothes, accessories, and fathers who understood that image was everything. The eye-rolling became constant. Ask about homework: eye roll. Suggest movie night: eye roll. Try to make a joke: eye roll and sigh. "It's just adolescence," her mother said. She doesn't mean it personally. But it felt personal. This was the same kid who used to save me half her cookie, who'd run to the door when I got home, who'd called me the best dad in the world. Now being seen with me was a punishment. The weekend project stopped. "I'm busy," she'd say. Then spend hours on her phone. Her new friends weren't like the old ones. They whispered and laughed behind my back, their expressions barely hiding their contempt. "Can you drop me off at the corner?" she'd ask. The corner was 3 blocks from school. She was embarrassed by my truck. Shopping became a battle. Nothing I picked was cool. Katie's stepdad bought her the whole outfit, and he's not even her real dad, she said once. That word, real, cut deep. "I am your real dad," I told her. "You know what I mean," she'd reply. But I wasn't sure I did. Was I just a wallet now? The unconditional love seemed gone overnight. Her mother kept saying she'd grow out of it. But when I saw her glowing with laughter around her friends' fathers, I knew it wasn't just teenage rebellion. Somehow, I'd become the enemy in my own home. Her 16th birthday was supposed to be special. I'd planned for months, taking notes whenever she mentioned a car she liked. She'd been hinting heavily, expecting something grand: sports cars, SUVs, vehicles far beyond reason. I did what I thought was right. I researched safety ratings, reliability, and insurance costs, wanting something safe and lasting. After weeks of searching, I found it: a 3-year-old sedan, perfectly maintained. It wasn't flashy, but it was dependable. I cleaned it myself, detailed every inch, even tied a red bow on top. At her party, surrounded by friends, I handed her the keys with a smile. "Your chariot awaits, princess." But instead of joy, she looked horrified. "Are you kidding me?" she said loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. "It's a great car," I began, but she cut me off. "It's a mom car. It's what middle-aged women drive to grocery stores." Her friends exchanged glances, some amused, others uncomfortable. I tried to stay calm. "It's safe and reliable," I said. "My dad," she laughed bitterly, "my real dad would have known what I wanted." The words hit me like a blow. "I am your real dad," I said quietly. "You're my mother's husband," she replied, her voice sharp and deliberate. "You bought me something embarrassing because you're cheap." Her mother finally intervened, but not how I hoped. She just said, "Honey, maybe try to see it from his perspective." His perspective, as if I were a stranger. She stormed inside, leaving her friends to awkwardly disperse. The party ended in silence. That night, I sat in the car for an hour, staring at the unraveling bow, realizing all my effort meant nothing. Later, her mother told me she'd come around. But when my daughter called me my mother's husband, I knew she meant it. The car sat untouched for days until her mother made her drive it. Even then, she'd park blocks away from school, too embarrassed to be seen in it. That's when I understood. Nothing I did would ever be enough. I wasn't her father anymore, just the guy paying bills. The final break came at dinner one night, a local steakhouse, celebrating my foreman's anniversary. It was supposed to be pleasant. Then the talk turned to college. Someone mentioned tuition costs, and feeling proud, I said, "We've been saving since she was 8. She won't need loans." The table went silent. Then she appeared, my daughter, suddenly beside us, beaming. "Did you tell them about Princeton?" she said loudly. "I got in early admission." The table froze. "Princeton?" I asked. "When did you apply?" "Mom helped me last fall," she said proudly. "We didn't want to jinx it." I looked across the restaurant. Her mother sat with her book club, watching. "Sweetheart," I began carefully, "Princeton costs $60,000 a year. We haven't discussed." "So?" she interrupted. "That's what college costs. Everyone knows that. The state school fund we set up won't—" "Oh my God," she snapped, her voice rising. "Are you seriously lecturing me about money right now?" The table was frozen. "This isn't a lecture," I said softly. "It's a conversation we should have had privately." She laughed coldly. "The commitment is getting into an Ivy. The commitment is doing better than settling for mediocrity." "The state schools are excellent," I said. "They're what we planned for." "You planned," she shot back. "No one asked you. You're not even my real father." The restaurant went dead silent. I could barely speak. "I've been your father for 8 years," I whispered. "You've been someone who pays for things," she said slowly. Every word meant to wound. "That doesn't make you my dad." "My real dad would understand I deserve better." Her mother appeared then, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Maybe we should talk at home," she said quietly, with that same look I'd seen too many times. The one that said I was being unreasonable. The one that said I was the problem. "Maybe you should think about having children of your own, instead of trying to control someone else's." Those words struck me like a blow to the chest. 8 years of Saturday projects, bedtime stories, scraped knees, school plays, and saving for college. 8 years of being called dad, of feeling like the luckiest man alive because this incredible kid had chosen me. And suddenly, in front of friends and colleagues, I was told that none of it had ever been real. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, replaying every word from that disastrous dinner, feeling something inside me fracture. The humiliation was one thing, but the clarity that followed was worse. They hadn't needed a husband or a father. They needed a walking bank account. At sunrise, before either of them woke up, I went to the bank. The college fund I had spent 8 years building, $47,000, was moved into my retirement account within minutes. Her Princeton dream became my future stability. Then I drove straight to my lawyer's office. By the time they realized what was happening, the divorce papers were already filed. When I returned home that evening, they were waiting in the kitchen, her mother's face blotchy from tears, her daughter looking like Christmas had been stolen. "You can't be serious," her mother blurted out before I even set foot inside. "You're ending our marriage over a teenager's outburst?" "I'm ending it," I said quietly, setting my keys on the counter for the last time. "Because I finally understand what I mean to you both. I'm a wallet, not a husband or father." "That's not true," she protested. "We love you. You love what I provide." I core. "That's not the same thing." Her daughter stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her usual defiant expression mixed with something new, fear. For the first time in years, she looked at me like I mattered. "This is insane," she said. "You can't just leave because I got into a good school." "I'm not leaving because you got into Princeton," I said. "I'm leaving because you made it clear I'm not your father. I'm just the guy paying your bills." "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." I handed her the bank statement showing the empty college fund. "And you're right. I'm not your biological father, so I'm done pretending." Her mother's face went pale as she snatched the paper. "You took her college money?" "I took my money back," I said evenly. "The money I saved for my daughter's education. Since you've made it clear she's not my daughter, that money belongs to me." She needs her real father," I interrupted. "The one who would have understood about Princeton. ... Where is he, by the way? Still sending those $50 guilt payments twice a year?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, her daughter whispered, "We can't afford Princeton without that money." "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "You've spent years treating me like the help. Congratulations, you just fired the help." "Please," her mother said, reaching for me. "Don't do this. We need you." "No," I said quietly. "You need my bank account." I went upstairs, packed my bags, and listened to their hushed conversation below. Snippets about loans, about her biological father, about fixing things. When I came back down, her daughter was crying. Real tears, the first I'd seen in years. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean what I said about you not being my real dad." "Yeah, you did," I said softly. "And maybe you were right. Maybe I was just pretending I could buy my way into being someone's father." "That's not true," her mother insisted. "You are her father." "I paid her expenses," I corrected. "Apparently there's a difference, and she's old enough to understand it." I looked at the girl who used to call me daddy, who once shared her cookies with me, who used to hold my hand when she was scared. Now 16, she had chosen who I was in her life. "Good luck with Princeton," I said. "I hope your real father comes through for you." As I closed the door behind me, I heard her mother's voice fade. "We just need to figure out how to get him back. Not how to make it right, not how to show love, just how to get me back." That night, I moved into a small rental across town, ordered pizza, and slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I updated every document, removed their names from my insurance and beneficiaries, and began building a life that wasn't centered around being someone's ATM. It felt like waking up from a very costly dream. 5 years of freedom changed everything. Without the constant drama, I could finally focus on my business. I had more energy than I'd had in a decade. I hired new employees, bought more equipment, and expanded operations. The money that once went toward designer clothes and college funds now went into growth, better tools, marketing, and profit sharing for my team. By the third year, we were booked 6 months out. By the fifth, I owned 4 trucks, employed 8 people, and clients were calling me. I bought a home that was entirely mine, a workshop, a garage big enough for both my truck and motorcycle, and a backyard where I could barbecue without eye rolls. The peace was unbelievable. No more walking on eggshells. No more being made to feel guilty for not understanding teenage moods. I rediscovered joy. Fishing trips, motorcycle rides, a bowling league, woodworking, even guitar. Terribly, but with enthusiasm. My crew noticed. "You seem different, boss," my foreman said. "Happier." Period. "I am," I replied, and meant it. Through mutual friends, I heard about my ex-wife and her daughter. The second marriage didn't last. 18 months tops. He wasn't as willing to fund their lifestyle. They'd moved multiple times, each place smaller than the last. Princeton never happened. Community college for a year, then dropout. The car I'd bought was repossessed. My ex went through boyfriends who came and went once they realized what they'd signed up for. When my neighbor said, "They ask about you sometimes," I only replied, "I'm sure they do." But the bitterness was gone. I wasn't angry anymore, just relieved. I'd escaped an emotionally and financially draining trap. Instead of wasting energy on people who saw me as a resource, I invested in myself. The business thrived, my retirement grew, and my home was fully paid off. I could retire comfortably at 55 if I chose to. Most importantly, I'd learned my worth. I wasn't a wallet. I was a man who deserved respect. 7 years after the divorce, I was grilling dinner one quiet evening when I saw 2 figures on my porch. My ex-wife and her daughter. She had aged, weight gained, eyes dull. Her daughter, now 23, looked worn out, her face lined with exhaustion. "Hello," I said evenly. "Can we come in? We need to talk," my ex-wife said. "We can talk here," I replied, staying in the doorway. Her daughter's pride fought her desperation. Desperation won. "We're in trouble," she said quickly. "Bad trouble." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. I took no joy in their suffering. "Our car got repossessed," my ex-wife explained. "We lost the apartment. I lost my job. We're staying with my sister, but only for a week. I'm working at a diner," her daughter added. "It's barely enough to eat." I waited. "Where's your biological father?" I asked. My ex-wife sighed. "He sends $100 at Christmas, if he remembers." "So, the man who would have understood," I said quietly. Her daughter flinched, but I wasn't cruel, just honest. "We know we took you for granted," my ex-wife said. "But we're family." "No," I interrupted. "We're not. Your daughter made that clear 7 years ago, and you agreed." "I was 16 and stupid," she cried. "You were old enough to mean it," I replied. "You made sure I knew exactly where I stood." They started talking at once. Apologies, excuses, promises, but underneath, the same message returned. "We need your help." "You can co-sign for an apartment," her daughter said. "Maybe help with a car," her mother added. And there it was. They weren't here because they missed me. They were here because their ATM had walked away. "You're still treating me like a provider," I said calmly, "not family." "Please," my ex-wife begged. We have nowhere else to go. You do, I said. The same place you had 7 years ago. 2 weeks later, my phone exploded with notifications. My ex-wife had posted a picture from our daughter's 10th birthday, captioned with emotional manipulation about how I abandoned them when they needed me most. Hundreds of comments poured in, people calling me heartless. But she hadn't expected one thing. I'd kept everything. Bank statements, text screenshots, receipts, photos, witnesses. I made a video, not emotional, just factual, and told the truth. I explained how I had loved that girl, saved for her future, and was publicly told I wasn't her father. I showed the receipts. This isn't about abandoning a child, I said. It's about recognizing when you're being used. Love doesn't come with a price tag, but mine apparently did. The video went viral, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. Step-parents, fathers, and viewers across the world related. Her mother tried to fight back online, but facts win over theatrics. Her daughter posted a weak apology. I was just a kid, but it carried no weight at 23. Eventually, public opinion shifted. I wasn't the villain. I was the man who learned to value himself. 3 years later, I saw her again, working at a diner. She looked tired, older than her age. Our eyes met through the window. I gave a small, neutral wave. She lifted her hand slightly in return. I thought about going in, but didn't. Some chapters deserve to stay closed. My ex-wife eventually remarried, divorced again, and still struggles financially. Her daughter still waits tables, still chasing stability that never came. I don't feel joy in that, but I no longer feel guilt. Her real father never stepped up, still sends guilt money, still gets credit for nothing. As for me, I'm 53 now. My business thrives. My peace is solid. I'm with someone who sees me as a partner, not a paycheck. I once chose to be a father wholeheartedly, and she chose to reject that. We both live with those choices, but only one of us learned peace. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away.